What I will be showing you today is how I use my JOSM editor to find the faults that I'm looking for and to make sure that the task that I am validating is free of any errors or mistakes. The past training has dealt mainly with the theory behind this, and here we are going to look at the practical and how we use different tools to find different problems. Right, I'm going to share my screen now, and we can continue. Right. If everybody can see my screen, this is my latest version of the JOSM. What you need to do is to remember to look up at the top here to make sure that you are using the latest version. So it does not say there that I should update. Okay, and what happens here is you get information on your start page which tells you all the news and what has happened and what has changed in JOSM, so you can keep up to date on what is happening. I am now going to start off with the very first step of the process. Let me just get that up and running. Okay. Right. On my screen is, I'm going to put in Bing imagery for this one. On my screen is an example of a task square that was mapped and validated for the let me just switch for the Hokkaido earthquake in Japan many years ago, and the validators were also quite new to the game, and they were working on that. Bernard, can you post in the chat the link to the process, the validation process that you have online, the multi-language one that you have online, so that they can refer to the process. Right, so the first step that we do is the one that says, is this task completely mapped? And the way to do that is with your cursor in the select mode. That means it's got that little rectangle next to the cursor. If it doesn't, please press S on your keyboard, and that will bring up this selection mode. Right, so what I do is I can either, because I want to concentrate just in this task, so I am going to just drag a square around, a selection square around the task area, and I let go. Now, what it has done is it has highlighted all of the items within this task, and I can see that they are all highlighted. Now what I can do is I can zoom in to have a look at whether everything has been mapped or not. This works extremely well if you have a very, very busy task, but it also helps you to find, if you have a very empty task, it also highlights where things have been mapped, and you can see, okay, I can see where the buildings are. That way, you won't miss any outlying isolated dwelling that you didn't see because it was up in the top corner or something. So this way lets you know where everything has been mapped and what has been mapped. Now I use my scroll button or my plus minus keys, and I zoom in. Now I'm looking to see whether everything has been mapped, and I can see that this looks pretty good here as far as that goes. But here is a building right in the middle of the screen here that has not been mapped, and there are buildings alongside it. So I can see here that there's a whole area of buildings that have not been mapped, because they would have a square around them to show that they were buildings. I see there's a few more here in the middle of this cluster of buildings. So there's quite a few here. If I scroll down, here's a few more that have not been mapped. Yes, so I would invalidate this task and say in the comments to the person who validated the task, please recheck this task. There are a number of buildings that have not been mapped. So that is what I would do with this task, because of all these buildings that are not mapped. Now, this is an example. I can see there is quite a lot of buildings that have been mapped, but there are still some that are missing from this task. So please check that it is complete, and if it's not complete. Now, I'm just looking at buildings here, but please check your instructions of your project, because you need to know what the mappers are supposed to be mapping and how they're supposed to be mapping them. So if this is talking about highways, I see that some highways are not highlighted, but they are mapped. So this is interesting. I don't see any missing highways, which is a good sign. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that, and I am ready to move on. Now, the next item on the list to do is to check that the everything has been properly mapped. Now, the way to do that is to go down to your validation panel, the validation panel on the right. If your validation panel is not open, please go to the left-hand side here and click on the blue tick to open the validation window. I now I have everything deselected, so nothing has been selected. And I run the validation check, and there it goes, and it tells me there are 37 warnings. If I have a look at that, then this is a buildings project. It should not have problems with buildings. I see on the right here, crossing building highway, crossing a highway waterway. That highway waterway is not of a concern in a building project. Unclassified. Node connects highway and building. Now that is wrong. It should not be happening. Overlapping buildings should not be happening. Unconnected nodes without physical tags, please check those, and whether they should be deleted or not. So there you have. Now, if you were looking at highways, there's a lot of highway problems here as well, which says way end node near other highway, which means maybe something has not been joined. the crossing building highway, crossing highway waterway, crossing highways. So all of those are things that need to be checked. There are a whole lot more problems that the validator will pick up, and you need to actually check some of those to see whether they are impacting on the buildings or not. Because if you only do a buildings project, the main part of your validation is checking to make sure that the buildings are all clear and correctly mapped. Right, now, the next thing, of course, is everything correctly connected? Now, to see that, I would select the major highway running through, or any highway that's running through the area, and then I use the Control, Shift, and E. What that does is it highlights all of the highways that are joined to the network. And I see there's a number that are not joined. Now, we need to think of the highways not in terms of do they conform to what's on the background imagery. We have to think in terms of how will this navigation sat-nav software find ways in this setup. So just remember, it moves from one node to the next node to the next node, trying to find which is the quickest, easiest route to go. If a highway does not connect up, then it will not recognize that there's any road there, and it will consider that as a dead end. So here we have that this lot here has not highlighted. That means that the sat-nav will come along here. It will not be able to take you to any of the places along this road because it does not recognize that there is a connection. Now, I take a look at this close up to see what is happening here, and I see, quite correct, that is not connected. And the other thing is that if I check this, I see that this road comes down here and goes across and stops there. Now, that is not good mapping. This should be separated to start with. So that should be, I press P on my keyboard to separate that. So now I can see that those are two separate roads. That can now be classified. It shows it as unclassified. It's not. It should be a service road, service driveway, because it just takes you onto this property here. So that is a service road and should not have been joined up with the unclassified road. Now, if I take this one, now remember how you merge points? You select a node. So you select the node that you want to move, and you select the node that you want it to move to, and you press M on your keyboard, and that links it up. So now those are connected. And if I choose this and press Shift Control E, now I can see that it's all joined up and linked, and the sat-nav will be able to take you along to that part of the map. Now, the same would go for all of these here. This is not connected up. There's an error here, and there it is. Now, those errors would be this one here, which says way end node near other highway. That's near the highway, but it's not connected to the highway. And that is what that type of thing is telling you. So we need to make sure that they're all connected so that the sat-nav can pick routes through the area, and also it will show up on the map that you can access those areas. Now, the next thing that you need to be looking at is, are the roads correctly tagged? Now, correctly tagged for highways is important, because the sat-nav will give a certain level of importance to highways that are of a higher level. So any highway that is unclassified or tertiary or above gets a much higher level than the residential road. It will also, and the residential road will have a much higher classification than a service road. So you can see that the sat-nav needs to understand these things to be able to find their way around. So what we would be looking for is these tertiary roads are continuous. Now, I can see that this yellow road here is a tertiary road. So I'm trying to see whether this is continuous, and I can see it remains tertiary up to this point here. Now, if you look in the map features page that I told you about before, and you go to a tertiary road, it will tell you that a tertiary road runs from one major town to another major town and large village. So this, I would expect this tertiary road to be at least going to another large town or large village. But I see that this does not go there. So I follow through to see if this road does go to it. And I see that this road does not. It goes to a small settlement here, and that's not a large village. And so that should not be a tertiary road. And I would then have to either reclassify it, or if I find a whole lot of other roads that are not correctly tagged and classified, then I would invalidate this and ask someone to please check the road classifications. I see here that this tertiary road is going along to here and it stops there. Now, if I want to see where it's going and whether it is connecting up to anything, I want to add that section of the map to see what is happening up this end. Because remember, it only uploaded the area of your task square. So I would then go up to the green arrow in the top left, up in the top left, the green arrow pointing downwards, and I click on that, and it brings up what is called a slippy map. Now, I want to see whether this goes anywhere, so I will select a area that I want to look at, and I will make sure that my green tick is next to my data layer, and then I will download the extra area onto my data layer. Right. And when I get there, I see that this is connected to another tertiary road. So that would work, but is the tertiary road connecting major towns? No, it's not. It goes to another road here, and it goes into, so no, this should not have been, at best, this road should have been unclassified. So you can see here that I would have to consider that as being reclassified. Now, the next thing is, when I get a built-up area like this, I will expect to see all of the roads inside the built-up area is going to be residential, or most of them will be residential. Any unclassified or tertiary would run all the way through the village and not break up. So I check this, and that says it's an unclassified road. These are all unclassified. They should not be unclassified. They should be, at the least, they should be residential. Now, how do we quickly spot whether these are all the same classification and need to be changed? Well, you can do that by using the remember I told you about the map paint styles? Okay, you can use the Apple validator and click on the Apple validator, and you can see that it comes up in different colors. Now, these different colors are not what you are looking for. So don't trust those for this. What you would be looking for is colorways. Now, what the colorways does is it colors. It's not working. Come on, come on, come on. Okay, colorways is not working on this one. Interesting. Okay, I'll have to check that. Thank you. Sorry for that. Let's see. These are not working. That is. Okay, so that's not working on this example I'm showing you. But certainly what you need to do is to check that all of these in the residential area are residential, right? Now, the other thing that is also important is with the sat-nav. When the sat-nav is traveling along a road, what it's looking for is junctions. So if a road does not connect with another road, then that is not recognized as a junction, and the sat-nav will just keep continuing along until it gets to another node. That means it will not identify that there's a junction here, so it will not be able to turn left or right to take you where you're going. Now, that is this one here, crossing highways. And let's just have a look what that does. If you open up the crossing highways, you'll see there's a list of 8 of them. If you click on one of those, you right click and you zoom to the problem. And it takes you to a point where there is, now you can see the yellow lines are highlighting that there is no node there. Now, any sat-nav will travel along here. It will say there's a junction because there is a node. So it will have a look at both of those roads and say, no, I want to go straight. And it will carry on straight, but it will not see that there is a junction here because there is no node. It will carry on to this point, and then it will have to take you up here and all the way around to get you to this building. Now, if there is a node there, so I'm going to press A on my keyboard and move my cursor until both of those are highlighted. Press once, press escape. Now there is a node there. The sat-nav will come up here. It will recognize that there is a junction, will decide which way to go, and that's its destination. So it will turn left here and bring you to here, a much shorter route. So how we make sure that all of these are linked up and joined is very important. So remember, you can zoom to the problem without having to search if you use the validation. And there's another one that needs to be done. Okay, so we've looked at classification, continuity, and we've looked at the node connections. So we have junctions. Now, a highway is important. The highway that you are looking at, if it does not follow all the bends and curves, that is not very important. Because if you're traveling down the road and you see that the map says the road goes straight, but you actually see that the road does curve or bend, you will follow the road rather than try and go straight. It's very important when you get to a junction that all the junctions are correct. Now, I've shown you that if there isn't a node at the junction, you can't use it. The other important thing is to show, can you cross over this road to the other road? If it's yes, there should be a road there to help. So you can see that that would be important. Now, this junction is now correctly depicted. If in actual fact you could not go directly onto the road, but you had to use an on-ramp, then it would be important for those on-ramps to be shown, to show that you have to use certain directions to get on and off. So the junction is very important, and that is very necessary. Now, there is another one that I want to mention to you. Where is it? This is this one here. It's called a layer checker. Now, it's important to check the layers. There are some, there is a problem in the ID editor whereby they actually make a suggestion that if two buildings are overlapping each other, you can add a layer to the building to stop that. That means if you give a building layer -1, the map actually thinks that the one building is underneath the other building, and therefore they're not clashing. Now, this is a false representation. The two buildings are still on the same level, and they should not be clashing. So we need to check that. There are others who also add -1 or 1 to a river, so that they don't have to worry about canals. They don't have to worry about bridges. They don't worry about tunnels, and they don't have to worry about any of those. So that is important to use your layer checker. Now, what does the layer checker do? It highlights. You can see here it has highlighted this section. Now, that is a bridge, so I expect that to have a layer on it. And I look elsewhere to see if anything else is affected. It's only that green there that appears to be affected. However, let me show you what happens if I add a layer to this building. Add layer, and I'll put layer 1. Okay, and the moment I put layer 1 on, it is highlighted that it has a layer. So please use the layer checker to make sure that things are correctly tagged with the layer. Now I see that all of these waterways do not have that, and that's not a problem. Here is an example of nodes that are unconnected, and that is very interesting. Those should be connected, and we don't know why they're there. So there's nothing there. If you check that, and you see here under author, you can see here the author. If you haven't got your author panel open, then it's these little symbol on the left-hand side here with the two people on it. Click that, and that will open up the author panel. Now I see that the author is this person. I can check the author by highlighting that and saying select. Then what happens is that should open up. Right, I'm having a look to see. So sorry, okay, show info. Okay, show info, and what happens is that that person's profile should come up here, and you can see that this person has been mapping since 2018, so they are a reasonably experienced person, and therefore you should check why this person has got this unconnected nodes. To do that, you click on the node, Shift Control H, and that will bring up the history . Control, Shift, Control. Okay, I'm just getting my screens sorted. Right, okay, Control H is come up, and I can see that this person was mapping on numerical information forest 2006. So that should not be there, and someone else has adjusted or corrected incorrectly. So whatever was there was incorrectly repaired. So I will need to go back and look in the history for that. Now, if something like this comes up and you're not quite sure about it, please go onto this Slack channel and ask a question, or send a message to me to ask to investigate that specific thing. So you can take a screenshot, or you can send me the URL of the task square. The task number and the project number will also help me to understand, well, what it is. So you can see that something there has happened, and it needs to be checked what it was or why it was. The person is a reasonably experienced mapper, so we have to assume that they understood what they were doing. Okay, right, so we've looked at all of those, and we are beginning to understand. Now, there's one other thing that you need to do, and that is to check if all of the buildings have been properly squared. Now, to see if all the buildings have been properly squared, we go to the Mapathoner, and the Mapathoner, you download it as well. You were asked to download the Mapathoner from the plugins. Right, so I go to select non-orthogonal building, and I click on that, and I see straight away a whole lot of buildings get highlighted in red. Now I can see, first of all, this one is definitely has no odd angles and looks like it should be squared, but there's a problem. If you have a look at the size of that node and the size of that node, let me zoom in more. The size of that node is small. The size of that node is big. That means this building is connected to that wooded area. If you try to square that, you will pull the wooded area out of shape. So if I do that and I press Q on my keyboard, and that's what happens, it pulls that out of shape. So Control Z to put it back. So you first need to highlight the building and press G on your keyboard. So if you press G on your keyboard, and that will unglue. I want to unglue this node, so that's yes. So it's unglued, and now I can square. So you can see you can't just square everything that is selected. You need to go to each one and have a look that it is correctly. Now, if I run the Mapathoner again, non-orthogonal, that one does not highlight anymore because it has been squared. However, I have a look at this one, and when I zoom in, I can see that that should not be squared because it has got an angular and it's got a curve around. So this building should not be squared. Please make sure that you do check your buildings. Here's another one. that has an oblique angle, it is not supposed to be squared. So please be careful when you're doing things like that. Now, if you look at this one, it's once again the buildings at different angles, so it should not be squared. So please remember, you cannot just square in batch. Now, if you have a number of buildings, like here we have another one that is connected to a road, if you just squared that, it would distort the road. Now, I'm going to show you how you can identify all of those that are connected to things. So if I go to my missing maps, once my map paint styles down the bottom here, open up my map paint styles, and I go to my missing maps validator checker, and I see straight away that it comes up with red triangles. So if I switch off my validation, I can see that there are red triangles there. Now that is indicating something wrong, and I can see that this building is connected to the road. That building is connected to the road. So using your map paint styles validators, it will check. Now, the missing maps one does that. You can also use the Apple validator, and the Apple validator will also highlight it. You can see here, road intersecting building. There it is, road intersecting building. So you can see that those do have similar functions. But one thing that's missing from the Apple validator, which is why you need to check against all your validators, I will switch that off and I will go back to the missing maps one. And you can see the missing maps one comes up with orange triangle as well. So you can see here there's an orange triangle. And that says, while this is not a critical, it is a warning that the building is connected to something else. And you need to go in and have a look. What else it will show you is if two buildings are joined to each other. So let me show you that. So I click on the node that I want to move. I click on the node I want to move it to. I press M, and immediately you can see that it gets highlighted by the map paint style. So those will help you if you are busy mapping. It will help you to have map paint styles switched on, or inline validation switched on while you are mapping, so that you can quickly spot mistakes like that while you are mapping and while you are validating. So you can see that there are a whole lot of different things here in the JOSM that will help you to quickly find. Now I'm looking here and I can see that there is something wrong here because that is linked. Now, what is it linked to? It is two. There is this one, which is a natural wetland, and there is this one, which is a waterway, natural waterway. So I can see that those have been joined together. And that may be correct, and that's maybe what was wanted. However, I can see here that this center line of the waterway crosses the riverbank, and that should not be happening. So that should be inside the riverbank. Okay, now I've been going through all of this to try and help you to understand some of this and the highways. I'm going to stop this for the moment. Okay, and I'm going to bring up something else. I want to highlight something important. There is only 3 ways that is of concern to us about the way that highway and waterway connect with each other. There are a couple of other ways, but we won't deal with those at the moment. Then the ways that those are is a bridge, Okay, let me switch off that. You can see the bridge here. Identification of a bridge is quite easy. One of those is the highway actually changes color when it goes over the bridge. Another identifier is that the highway has got sections across the bridge and changes color at the bottom. And the third one that you look for is a deep shadow alongside the bridge. Okay, and that is very helpful to identifying the bridge. Some bridges actually have parapets along the sides, walls along the side, so you might see a shadow there as well. Right, so that is how we do it. Now, bridges should have the layer on it, and a bridge should have layer 1. And the bridge should still keep the same category as the road that runs either side of it. Now, the next one that we're going to look at, let's just see. Here's a bridge, and I can see here it does change color. This one has got a parapet. You can see a small shadow alongside the wall on the side here, and you can see the deep shadow going down into the valley where the waterway is. So this bridge is missing and should be added. And the last one that we're going to look for, let's just see if I can find one. Right here. Okay, here is a ford. Here is a ford. Let's just see. So the road, let me A on my keyboard. And I can see here that the waterway is running through here. The road actually discolors where the waterway is and then goes back to being a road on the other side. So let's make that road add highway residential. Okay, just so that we can see it. Okay, and the waterway comes down here. So once again, A, select, add waterway, and the waterway is a river. Okay, now that should have a node. So you use your A on your keyboard and you put a node and select and add ford. Yes. So you can see how knowing your tagging very quickly tells you, very quickly helps you to be able to identify things and do them correctly. Now that does not have a layer, and you can see there's no layer identification. I've got my layer switched on and it's not identifying that. That is correct. So that was what you are looking for where you have a ford. Now, here we go. Here is a good example. Let me switch this off. Here is a good example of a culvert. Now we can see here that the waterway comes down through here and runs across. Let me put the waterway in. So select, add waterway river. Okay, right, so I've got that there. Now I can see the dark shadow on the side here. I can see that the road is continuous and there's no discoloration and there's no indication that there is a bridge structure there. So I know that this is a culvert, and that culvert should look like this. If you've got the correct upload, at least connections on your JOSM, then you should have on the side here a thing called a double split. And when you select the double split and click where the culvert starts, okay, and click where the culvert ends, and it asks you, do you want a tunnel culvert? And you say yes. And I select that, and I can see immediately it highlights that there is a layer on that because I have my layer checker switched on. So I can see that that is now correct. Let me switch off the layer checker, and you can see here that the culvert is shown with a red alongside its side. So you can see that that shows up as well. And that's what you would be looking for in this case. So when you check waterways, that's what you're looking for. And the river should not have a layer on it, but only the culvert should have a layer. Now, those are the things for waterways. I'm going to come out of this now. We're almost at time, so let me, and one last item. I'm using Bing here again as my background imagery. Now, this is an ideal one for understanding the flow of waterways. The waterway needs to flow downhill. So if you find the first major river, then all of these rivers will flow into the main river, and that would be the direction of flow. Now, this is an excellent way of, or shall I say, background imagery, because I can see where the river starts and the direction it flows, going all the way down as it flows down towards the main river. So I can see that quite clearly here. Now, what kind of errors would you be looking for? The errors are someone who has mistaken two different flows and linked them together. So let me switch on and see. Here's an example of that. Here is a waterway that is shown as flowing in this direction. You can see the arrows on this show it's flowing in this direction, but it's going up over the hill. You can see that's going over the hill. The road here or track is running along the peak of the ridge. So this is wrong. It should not be going in that direction. It should be flowing towards this river. Now, I see here, this is incorrect because this river is flowing down this way and then it's connected up that way. So this is now flowing in the wrong direction. It should be flowing down that way. So doglegging like this is something that should not happen because it then gives a wrong direction of flow. So you can see here that there are a number of problems. Here's another example. I can see the erosion at the beginning here. This should not go over the ridge. It should follow down that way into the waterway and onwards. So those are problems that we find. Now, there is another way that you can also see this, and that is by downloading or using as a background imagery a set of contours. Now, if you go up to your imagery, and you should have got yourself in place for your imagery, Open Topo Map and Open Cycle Map. Now, you need to load those into your active imagery. And when I click on Open Cycle Map, I see that it comes up with contours already on it. But I can't see through this layer to see what's underneath. So how does this effectively help me? Well, the one thing that it can do is for you to in your where have I got anything? Okay, let me open this up so we can see. So I've got my Bing imagery, and I've got OpenCycleMap now open. So what I want to do is I want to select OpenCycleMap. So I've got OpenCycleMap here, and I use the little eye here, and I open this up, and I want to make this layer transparent. So I've got that at 100%. I take it down to about 50%, and I can now see the imagery behind that layer. So I have seen that. You can take it down a bit further if you need a bit more clarity. But what it does is it means that the contours have gone lighter as well, so they're not easy to see. So I go to what is called the gamma, and I increase the gamma slightly. Now this makes the contours a bit darker. Now I can see better the contours and the background imagery. And I can then decide where the contours are helping me and where they're not, with directional flow. Remember, the contours have got little numbers on. So if I switch that off, there are small numbers on the contours, and I can see it will go from 800 to 750 to 700, and that means that direction is downhill. You can also see by valleys. A valley is a contour that comes up, round, and back down again alongside each other, and that will help you to see directional flow as well. So there are ways and means of you in flat areas to try and find directional flow. In hilly areas, make sure. It also helps you if you are trying to work out whether something that you are seeing is a road or it's not a road. If it's going uphill and over the top of the hill and down the other side, it's not a river. It is more likely to be a road. If it's running along the top ridge of a set of hills, it's more likely to be a road and not a waterway. If it's flowing down the side quite steeply in a valley, there's a good chance it is a waterway. So using the contours will also help you to decide that sort of thing. Right, your hour is almost up, and I'm going to say thank you for watching. I'm going to stop sharing for the moment. I'm sorry that there isn't any questions at this stage. We are running out of time. So what I'm going to say is, if you have any questions, while you are busy playing around and trying out and looking at how to do these and using the map paint styles, please write your questions down. There will be another session after this where we will look at more detailed and questions that you may have and better understanding. Now you've seen the different tools in action and being used to identify the faults. Please use these and experiment with them and use those in your validation and also in your mapping to help you improve your own personal mapping as well as improve other people's mapping. Thank you very much indeed, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Ra.
Cues.
Right, mapping and happy validating.